Hey, what's up guys, and welcome into the channel where we talk landscape photography, and I help you improve your landscape photography through in-field and post-processing tutorials as well as gear reviews like this one. Two things before we get started. Number one, when I opened the box and we saw what was inside, you probably saw a huge thing across the front that said Lens Rentals. This video is not sponsored by Lens Rentals at all whatsoever. It's just a company that I use. It's a great photography hack for you if you want to try out a lens before you buy it, or if you want like a specialty lens like a macro lens or a super telephoto before you go on a trip. It's a great way to save some cash, rent a lens for a week, return it after a week and say, hey, some pretty cool photos I got with this lens. Number two, this lens, I know everybody says like, oh, this is the best lens, this is the best lens. This is truly the best wide angle lens I have ever used for my landscape photography. It's the Fujifilm 8-16 f2.8 lens. However, I'm not gonna beat around the bush and be like, oh, super affordable lens for you to buy. This lens costs a lot of money. That's why I put it on my Lens Rentals account and got it just for a week to try out and test out while I was testing the Fujifilm X-T30. If you want to see that review on this camera, you can click or tap the card that's showing up on your screen right now. But as I just said, this is the best lens I've ever used for landscape photography if we're going wide angle lenses. Here's why. Number one, the versatility of this lens is incredible. It's an 8-16, comparable to a 12-24 lens if you're using one on full frame. So this is 8-16 on a crop body. So what you can do with this is, number one, do a lot more shooting without moving your feet. You know, I'm used to using a lot of prime lenses. I use the Rokinon 12mm f2 a lot, and it helps me get some really ultra wide looks to my landscape photography. With this one though, I don't have to move my feet as much. I can zoom in if I'm in a really weird like predicament and I'm trying to, you know, not step in some water here or not try to damage some plants on this side. I can easily zoom this in and out to 8-16. Again, like I said, 12-24 comparison on a full frame body. But this is really nice to have. Number one, the lens slides really good from 8-16. It's a really great range for your wide angle photography looks. Helps you get those huge foregrounds and stretched edges onto your images. And an 8-16 is just a really good distance to use for wide angle shots. You know, you get the 8, you get that ultra wide look, and then the 16 is like that classic wide angle look. So you have a lot of versatility here with your 8-16 millimeter range. Number two, this lens is weather sealed. That's really important for outdoor landscape photography because we're going out in some really weird weather conditions. Like when people go back inside, when the weather starts to get bad, that's when we as landscape photographers start to get like really jazzed up about going out and shooting in some really weird weather events. See, this is weather resistant, as you can see on the bottom right here, but we need that. We don't want any moisture getting in here. We don't want any sand getting in here. We don't want like weird wind or ice or whatever condensation getting into our lenses. So the build and the durability here of this lens is really nice. It's also like a really good weight. Like even without the camera, like this is a really good weight to a lens. It's very sturdy, very well built. Lens hood does not feel cheap at all. I've used some weird lenses where like the lens hood comes with it and comes off. Feels very plasticky. Even the review I did on the Sony 70-200 f4 that you can see on the card showing up on your screen right now, the lens hood is just a little plasticky. It's like a little, it doesn't feel great, but it still works in a pinch. You know, this lens hood feels very durable, very nice. I love this. Number three is a fast aperture. Now this isn't like something that's unique to this lens specifically, but all Fuji lenses have this aperture adjustment ring on here. And I love this on lenses. Like I don't want to adjust the aperture in my camera body specifically. For this camera, you have your shutter dial, and then you can also adjust the shutter and ISO with rings on the back and the front. But having the aperture ring on the lens itself lets me easily access this. I don't have to worry about another dial on the body. I can just be like, oh, this is set in f2.8. I'll go to f/16 real quick. And that's a really great way to use your aperture. And this aperture is really fast at f2.8, allows for some great night photography, some Milky Way photography, and also getting really, really close to your subjects in the foreground and allow you to focus stack your images all the way through for tack sharp focus. That leads me to number 4, and that is the image quality of this lens is outstanding. Like, I've been testing all sorts of Fuji lenses with this camera, the X-T30, and I've been amazed at how great the image quality of Fuji lenses is, and this one is the best that I've seen. I'm talking like all the way to the corners and the edges where I typically don't make a big to-do about things being in like tack sharp focus. Well, I don't need to make a big to-do about it with this lens because everything is within focus. It's very, very sharp on the edges into the foreground. Probably like the last tiny little bit of the frame in my images is just slightly soft, and that's still using it at like f11, f14. When you get into f16, very sharp throughout the entire frame. Amazing image quality here. Let's talk drawbacks real quick. So drawbacks with this lens, as you can see, it's gonna be really hard to fit a filter onto the end of this lens, and that has to do with this like bulbous glass front to get that ultra wide angle look that the 8-16 f2.8 has. And this bulbous front is a struggle with filters when you're trying to attach one on because the lens ring doesn't really connect very well. You can get a lens ring adapter for this lens if you go on something like Amazon or B&H. I'll link those below in the video description, as well as this lens. But you can get those adapters. Just know that if you buy this lens wanting to use a lot of filters with it, you're gonna be in for kind of a headache here because there aren't that many available due to this, like, you can't take this lens hood off. It's stuck on here. Part of why it feels durable is it's on here all the time. So if you're using filters a lot, you're gonna have to buy a filter adapter. Other than that, guys, that is the only drawback to the lens that I've found. This is, again, the Fujifilm XF glass 8-16 f2.8 ultra wide angle lens for landscape photography. If you're a Fuji shooter and you have a lot of money to burn, again, this is not cheap, get this lens.